I remember CA being one of the most intense times of my life. And surprisingly, I feel the same way here for some reason.
And of course, there were a lot of people who asked me like, how can you study again, given you went through this 4-year-long process?
So basically, life is the normal distributed curve. That's what I learned at ISB. It's a normally distributed curve.
Crazy. Okay, so welcome to yet another episode of the ISB Show.
Thanks, Poojan.
Thanks, Poojan.
This one is named the CA Path to an MBA. So, as the name suggests, we have two CAs with us, Harsh Modi and Meghna Biju. Why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Sure. Go ahead.
So I am a November 20 pass out. So it was like the most exciting year to clear your CAs. It was the COVID year.
Uh-huh.
So we had our exams postponed. So I'm that batch. So after that, I was recently working in Lux Industries Limited. That's based out in Kolkata. So I was in the finance department of Lux Industries. Before that, I did my articleship from Grant Thornton and my graduation from St. Xavier's, Kolkata. Meghna?
Yeah. So thanks for having us, Poojan. So I cleared my CA in July 2021, and that was also a spillover COVID year. Did my articleship in Bangalore and was doing my college also there in St. Joseph's. And then joined Deloitte in the investment banking team. There I was helping startups raise funds and doing M&A deals. And 2.5 years at Deloitte, and here I am in ISB.
Super interesting. And so I'm also a CA. I'm pass out of the May 19 batch. I think one thing we have all in common is we have all given delayed exams. In my exams, there were 2019 elections.
Oh.
So my exams were also delayed about a month and a half. I think that was the reason I passed. Month and a half.
Oh yeah, we all got extra time.
Yeah.
Exactly. And after that, I worked for a year and a half with Udaan and for the last 3 years with Misho in their strategy team. And here I am. So the most frequent question that I get is we did CA, which is pretty intense in itself. It's a very small set of people opt for CA and an even smaller set become CA. So then why MBA? Why are we doing this?
I can start off. So personally for me, MBA was always in the radar. But after you do CA, you've just done 3 years of articleship, you have some kind of an idea of how a corporate environment works. I was sure that I want to get into a client service role, have some work experience, and then go for an MBA so that I can also figure out. So after CA, you would naturally have a couple of options. You can go on a practice, or you can join the industry. There are FP&A roles, or you can take some less chosen paths like startups or investment banking, all of that.
Yeah.
So I was sure I want to figure out what I really want for some time and then move on to an MBA. And of course, there were a lot of people who asked me how can you study again, given you went through this 4-year-long process.
Exactly.
Yeah. But again, what I felt is that MBA opens a lot of doors for you that CA may not have done that. So even as a CA fresher, when you're applying for roles, you come across many roles that have an MBA requirement, right?
I get it. Yeah.
So one is CA opens those doors for you, and those specific opportunities could be like PVC roles, or even in case of IB investment banking roles, they could be some of the bulge bracket banks that are usually open only to MBAs, though that's changing now. And second, I would say is of course the network, because as a CA for 5 years, you're surrounded mostly by finance folks. Of course, your clients are there, but you kind of end up developing a tunnel vision, I feel, and that's not for everybody. Varies from person to person, whereas MBA opens up your network to people from such diverse fields. It's not just engineers, right? We have got startup founders here, doctors here, such a diverse cohort, so that's obviously the big plus.
So I think Meghna has covered broadly every point possible why a CA would choose MBA. So yeah, obviously it opens doors and everything. For me personally, an added reason would have been the soft skills aspect of doing an MBA. So while we are doing CAs, we are so much into the rigor of ACADS and everything that we don't get an opportunity, for example, to present, to make presentations, decks. Although some aspect of it is covered in the corporate world, however, being in the finance function of it, there's not so much exposure to these soft skills that are very important right now and in this world especially to succeed. So from that perspective, I thought that an MBA would give me a platform to basically just go out there and experiment on those fronts, to be in that competitive mindset. Because again, like CA is an exam. it's not so much of a competitive exam as such, but over here in MBA we face that rigor, that competition that we are going to face in the corporate world as well. So that was an added thing that I felt that an MBA could give me apart from a CA.
No, I think I echo those thoughts, and for me it was always a discussion between breadth and depth, right? If you think about CA, and if you really enjoy finance, taxation and auditing, CA is the course for you, right? It takes you to the extreme depths of those subjects. But the roles I did, like I was doing general management and strategy at startups, I would look at 10 different functions in a given week, right? There'd be a strategy element to it, there'd be a marketing element to it, there'd be an ops element to it, there'd be an HR element to it. And I never academically properly learned the subjects, right? I could learn by doing, but an academic base, nothing beats a proper academic base, right? And probably doing these roles where I was doing a big breadth of work, along with depth in a couple of things, but breadth in 10 things was sort of an eye-opener for me. Probably an MBA is the right academic sort of background I would want to have, and that's why I chose to do an MBA. But yeah, and how do you feel it's how do you compare the intensity of, I remember CA being one of the most intense times of my life, and surprisingly I feel the same way here for some reason. So how do you compare the intensity of these two courses? How has your experience been so far?
I think in terms of intensity, it's not comparable directly to each other, because in CS it's so academically rigorous, right?
Correct.
I mean, you have to keep your academics top priority no matter what, no matter which audit is going on, which client is crying. Eventually, no matter what time of the day it is, you have to study 3 hours or do your coaching and all of that. And I think it's firstly 4 years. You get into this mind space that this 4 years CA is my number one focus. So even though I was going to college, it was like no matter what fest or what's going on in college, you have to say no to plans, and there is this insane amount of dedication that you have to put in there. And like you said, every subject in terms of accounts, the sheer volume was so much that you have to get down to the deepest corner of every subject and understand every single point well. Whereas in MBA, I feel in terms of academic rigor, if you're understanding the concepts, you're still good to go, because it's
Good
about
enough,
being a generalist and having a general view of so many subjects. Like we're doing operations, we're doing DevOps, all those subjects. It's about having a broad view. So in terms of academic rigor, I wouldn't say not as much. But one thing that I found here is that, every day, the range of the day is crazy some days. Like you start off with classes, there are club sessions, speaker sessions.
Like I've stopped planning in days. Like I've started planning in 2 hours. Like in the next 2 hours I have visibility. After that I don't know what's going to happen to me. Right?
For the first time I'm making my calendar over here. Like I have to. There's no other option.
Crazy, yeah. It's intense in different ways. Like CA was very intense in one dimension. Here it's less intense per dimension, but there's so many dimensions put into a day, right? Like you're doing your social stuff, you're networking, you're attending parties, you're going to dinners, you're doing your assignments, you're doing your resume prep, your case prep, you're going to classes. So it's different dimensions with low intensity per dimension put into one day, which just increases the intensity.
So it's basically that depth versus breadth that you talked about, right? Like in CA we have a lot of depth in so many things, but in MBA like we have to cover so many aspects, and ACADS is just one aspect of it. So again, like going for, we have to do our CV prep, we have to participate in group discussions. There are, even the nature of the ACADS is very different. For example, in CA we have to learn, we have to understand, we have to solve. But over here, we have to mostly analytically analyze, like the case-based study that ISB follows specially. So it basically allows us to, like, we have to go through 20 pages and then analytically analyze what the case is about, what can be, what is the case, what is the solution, forward-looking thinking aspects of it, rather than what the case is about exactly. So from that perspective, the nature of ACADS is also very different from a CA versus an MBA.
Right. And another thing that I found unique here is that, every day, no matter how hectic it is, no matter what time you sleep, you have to show up the next day and you have to socialize and whatever. You've got a study group meeting, case competition, you have to show up. Like in CA, there were days you could say no and get into your zone and maybe just focus on the client work that's there, or just on your academics. Especially when we have that study leave, we could really shut out everything else. But I feel like MBA kind of teaches you to balance in so many things and set your priorities right and really show up the next day no matter how the previous day was.
No, I completely get it. So if I have to ask you one subject which was eye opener for you, which made you feel like I could have never thought about things this way if I had not learned this, right? For me at least, it was the core operations course. I mean, I've never learned operations in my life, and the first time I sat in that class, some of the things I learned opened my eyes. I'm like, okay, now I understand a lot of logic behind why things are the way they are, right? And what it has been for you guys?
For me, it has been prescriptive analytics, so infamously DMOP.
Oh yeah, that's one of the most intense courses you could take at ISB.
Yeah, so for me, like I took that course because I wanted to learn new things, and trust me, it has hit its mark. Like the way it goes about solving problems, it has taught me how to look at problems in a different way altogether. So that's something, and that's not just acad related or any problem specific to any work life. You can even apply those to your personal lives. That's the best part about it, because it talks about optimization and constraints, and trust me, there are a lot of constraints in ISB and a lot to optimize there. So that's one subject that's
I know Harsh, by the way. His tool to life is also Excel. Like he would put all his problems in an Excel and try and solve proper CIs.
I really want to know how you figure out how to apply DMOP in real life. Another level.
That's a skill.
How about you?
So for me, it's been, I mean, like Poojan said, it's been operations, because these are things that you read about every day, like demand forecasting, inventory management, and all of that. And honestly, it felt very good to know how that actually works, and the fact that I can apply it now. Maybe we knew these concepts, but now the fact that you can apply it, and every business, especially consumer businesses. And that's also why I took supply chain as an elective. And these are topics maybe you don't need to get down, whether you're going for a career in consulting or finance, you don't need to get down to the details of it, but you always need to have an overview, I feel, just to get an idea of how things work. I mean, in a manager role, or say you're a CEO, you'll need to know how different departments work, and have an idea of how basic things work. But actually, in fact, corporate finance also, even though I'm from a corporate finance background,
I mean, you would think CAs finance, they should be on top of it, but the intuition of finance that I got here,
Agreed.
I don't think I probably would have had the mechanics of finance, but the intuition that I got here was really good.
It's basically like not just learning the concepts, but applying it to real life and those business context. That's what matters. For example, over here, the way they teach is you are a manager, you are a CEO, and this is a problem in front of you. How do you apply this over there? And that's the key takeaway from what we get over here. Rather than in CA, we are just expected to learn concepts, we are expected to understand things, solve problems, and move on. And again, there are a lot of things that are covered, like even in the SFM, strategic financial management. So that's what they called in our batch. So in that, we learned all these concepts, CAPM world and everything, and the assumptions and everything. But again, the way the intuition was built over here, that we understand the inner workings of it. So that was the fun part, and it was actually, again, like this was going to be my second subject that opened an eye for me, the finance part of it. But like being people expect that you are a CA, so you understand each and every bit of it. But that's not the case. Like I actually feel like an imposter in class. Like how have I not thought about this in this manner? Like viewing it from such a different lens altogether.
After a point in time, I stopped telling people I'm a CA. And even for operations, I think in CA we learned these things, right?
Economic order quantity,
economic order quantity,
we learned all that.
Safety stock and all of that. But you'll take that as a base and then build so much on top of it, like intuition wise. It's amazing. It's truly an eye.
One more thing to learn at ISB is how stats is weaved into everything. Grades, economic order quantity. We have also learned stats over there also.
It's the first time now I have intuition of stats.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel very good about understanding it. Finally, understanding the concept behind stats.
Stats could explain so many things in life. I believe you could understand most problems if you could put it in a stats sort of a format.
So basically, life is the normal distributed curve. That's what I learned at ISB. It's a normally distributed curve.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But so, by the way, for our viewers, at ISB, how it's structured is the first 3 terms are the core terms, and it's very academically rigorous. The marks you get in the first 3 terms are really important for your placements and so on, right? Term 4 onwards, you get to pick electives. So different people pick very different subjects, and the 3 of us barely have any subjects in common, right? So our 4th term onwards, people focus more on the learning and cases and resume and all of that. But the first 3 terms are really academically rigorous, and that's the same for all of us. So I just wanted to check if, being a CA, did it help you out in the first 3 terms? Does it help you? Do you feel like it gives an edge while studying for MBA subjects?
So in the first term, I'll say that accounts obviously was a piece of cake. So that's an undue advantage that I got. But apart from that, I believe that somewhere it was holding me back. Because again, like we talked about, viewing at things at a very different lens. For example, from the back end of it, now you have to come at the front end of it, the user of all those matrices and everything. So being a CA, I think that I was so much accustomed to the back end of things, the formulas of things and how it works, that I failed to understand how it works at the front end, how it's being used. So from that perspective, I believe that we get some advantages on some places, obviously, but some places it's a disadvantage also, because there's a lot of unlearning also required, rather than just learning about things, which I believe that some engineers or engineering background people, or the various different background, like even doctors, they perform much better. I've seen people getting better marks at me than me at finance and at accounts even. So that also happens like over there. So there's a very balance of things, and it depends on you basically. How you take things.
So basically there are 3 subjects which I feel are common to CA syllabus. One is account, second is finance, and third is costing. But I mean, my mechanics helped me halfway through. I still feel the other half is more intuition, and that intuition is common to all.
Exactly.
And people who make it to ISB, they all have extremely strong intuition. So it's not going to be that easy. But
right. So, and I think one more thing is that ISB is a lot about P2P learning, right? And as CAs, we obviously have a strong grip in finance and we have experience in finance. So there's a lot of value we can add to the cohort and take from the cohort as well. And ISB is all about those learnings that you exchange in peer-to-peer learning. So that way, it's been very valuable. And of course, I think CAs who come here should also realize that they have a lot of value to add to the cohort. I think after joining an MBA, people from all fields realize how important finance simply is. And that way, I think that's something that CAs in any MBA school can add a lot to the cohort,
Yeah, so again, like a very small instance, like when I was teaching to one of my friends about finance, some topic, and they just asked me a very basic question. And I was like, this is something that I have not thought about at all. So this very basic things, like you don't question it when you are learning about all those macro, like big level, like there are 1,000 things to learn. You're not thinking about those at such a granular or first principles thinking that sometimes get lost. But over here, even when you are discussing with people, you get very varied and like very basic and new perspectives on things. Absolutely. So that also helps, like in the peer learning. So it's not just that you are adding value. When you are adding value, the questions which you get, they are adding value to you, because they are making you think on those lines which you have not thought.
And that comes from the richness of experience, right? I've spoken to people who have worked on shop floors, who have worked on, who've been part of defense for years, who've been doctors, who are practicing architects, who have their own startups running outside of ISB parallelly while they study here. People who have worked in vaccine supply chains, people coming from consulting, the kind of, and that background shapes the thinking, and that thinking shapes the questions. So I would say a lot of people from similar background have similar questions, but the diversity of background just brings
out all those
and those questions it's the questions that really challenge you. Okay, why have I not thought about it? Like, the most important question is, how did I not think about it? That's the most frequent thing that happens.
It's like a eureka moment, like, dude, where has this been all along?
You will learn the most when you teach someone else, I feel. I mean, those questions really open up your mind and challenge your perspective.
Yes. I think one thing I would also add, one of my personal reasons to do an MBA is I entirely missed out on my college experience. Like, and a lot of people might relate that. I did go to a college, but I went there to give exams and just get a degree along with my CA. I focused mainly on my CA experience, right? And I didn't want to go through life without having gone to a proper full-time college, right? And that was a good part of my consideration while joining an MBA. I think, how have your guys' UG experiences been like?
So I think I'm the most eager to speak on this topic because it's been actually very terrible, because I had my morning college started at 6:30 p.m.
What is
6:30 a.m. Sorry, it was I've graduated from St. Xavier's College, and it started at 6:30 a.m. and there was a 75% mandatory attendance policy, and there was no room even to be late. So it was a very painful experience. And at 6:30 in the morning, nobody wakes up. Trust me, the world is asleep, and you are traveling in the scooty or trying to get cabs just to reach college. So basically, it ended at around 10:30, and after that, my articleship was there. So I did my articleship from Grand Thornton. So it was a full-time rigorous articleship that I had to do. So there was no room for slack even there. And so managing all that, I had literally no college life whatsoever. Whatever time I had in college, I used that to sleep or do my studies for CA and prepare for all those things. So I had no proper like hangouts between college or after, because again, where would you hang out? Just to go and have some tea. That's the most that we hanged out. And we didn't have any activities. I couldn't take part in any activities, any competitions, any position of responsibilities properly in my college. So that was again, like that was a very big consideration for me coming to MBA. Like I wanted to have that real college experience that I'm actually getting over here. Awesome. Talking to so many people, having so many friends.
Going to so many parties.
Yeah, going to so many parties. Having to think which party I want to attend and which party it's okay if I skip. So that's also it's a good problem to have, but I didn't have that problem going like before. So and Meghna, your experience?
So I have a different experience. So I mean, of course, like Harsh said, it was rigorous, it was crazy. So I went to a regular college, and for non-CAs, what that means is that you have to meet those attendance criteria. You have a regular college, there are fests, exams, everything happening. So we had classes from 7 to 10, after which we went to articleship, and after articleship there's 3 hours of in-person coaching. And so I mean, I would leave home at 6, reach back at like 11 p.m. at night. But I think what worked out well for me was, so initially before your IPCC coaching starts, you have 3 months. That was in first year of college. And between IPCC and articleship there were about 5 months. And in a regular college, there are people from such different backgrounds, right? And not everyone's doing CA. So I think what worked out for me well was like connecting with different people. And I think when you're just like 17, you know, your perspective is kind of in your own shell. Going to college kind of helped widen that and also make friends. Those are some of my closest friends now. And one more advantage that I would tell for CAs is that, so the college I went to, most of the CA students were put into separate sections. So that when you have people around you who are pursuing similar things while also managing college, it kind of, drives you to pursue it. I mean, it drives you to pursue while also you know that, okay, you have to say no to certain plans and certain things. And you really have to stick with your rigorous schedule and not get swayed as well.
Alright, very interesting. Crazy. And quickly we'll cover, if there's a CA who's working right now watching this video, who wants to come to, let's say, ISB or any other tier 1B school for that sake, what should be the plan? How can they prepare? How can they crack it? Your thoughts quickly.
So for a person who's a CA, like I'm assuming that they are working, and the biggest question that I get is like, from where did you prepare and everything. So again, like I believe that it's a very personal thing, like how you choose to prepare. Again, like you have to give GMAT or GRE, whichever you may choose to give. There's been a separate podcast on that, so I won't be covering that. But yeah, so being a CA, I believe that you're already so much used to that academic rigor that that studying won't be a problem. It all depends on, it all boils down to your way of studying, like whether you prefer coaching or do you prefer
managing time with your job.
So again, like with your job, I believe, again, everybody has a different way that they manage. They either study at night or study at morning, and that doesn't matter. It all boils down to how much intuition you are building, because again, like MBA, the entrance exam also requires intellect. It's not something that you can just learn, mug up and come and spill and you'll get the marks, because again, it's an intellect base, so you have to build that intuition around problems. So it's again, it all boils down to the quality of time that you're spending in your preparation. And like for ISB especially, the academic part is just the beginning. So I realized that after clearing GMAT, like, okay, I've cleared GMAT, now there's a plethora of things that I need to do.
The application
part to actually reach here. So it basically starts like in the application itself, there are so many different sections. You have to think about whatever. Like I have not analyzed my life at such a depth ever.
Where all of the struggles of your CA journey as well come in really handy. Even if, let's say, you've had attempts, you have had really difficult situations in life going through, some stages. Those things really bring a lot of detail and color to your stories, and your stories is what gets you here. I mean, GMAT GR is a part of it. Stories that you write in your essays is what's going to get you here. So don't worry if you have attempts or if you have some other thing not working for you right now. That probably might be the best story point you might have.
Exactly. So like whatever problems that we face in our CA journey, those actually shape us to a lot of extent, and that's why we are said to be like one of the best professionals in the country after clearing one of the toughest exams in the country. So that's something that ISB also values, and also like that's what brings into picture like the entire yourself. So that actually helps a lot, and considering all the application part and everything, so you just need to think about what you have done and probably try to bring that into a better light and be honest about whatever failures also have been there, because again that's also a part of your journey, because again like everybody over here must have had some point or the other where they have not been able to succeed, right? And that's what shapes us. So I don't think that's a problem in any manner.
Right.
I think
Harsh has covered it too well. But additionally, I mean, GMAT is an aptitude-based test, right? And I've also like talked to CAs, and many people ask, if how difficult is the exam. I do think that CAs have an edge there in the sense that you've gone through such a rigorous academic course, and this is an aptitude-based test, so most CAs should be able to make that cut. Second, when it comes to the essays, like Harsh was saying, there's a lot that CAs can bring to the table, because most of them start working at say 18, 19, right? And it's like 3 years of articleship in like such
there's more points to write about, right? Most people don't have that.
With such a hectic course that's also takes a toll on you mentally just because of the attempts involved. So I think that way you've gone through so much. There are such different experiences, and today CAs are working different fields, not just finance. So there is a lot that can be brought to the table in terms of essays, but one will really have to dig down the last like 6-7 years and bring out those points. So that's one thing. But yeah, of course.
By the way, the CAs that I've met here on campus, and you guys would have also have met, what's the broad breakup of their experience, right? I've met CAs who are from startups, who are from IB, who are from accounts and finance, who are from Big Four audits. I've also met CAs who have had their own startups. So even CAs have had a very wide breadth of experiences that they have come with. So that has also been very eye-opening for me, just speaking to other CAs, where I can relate to them so much more, right? And then understanding how they went through so much different experiences.
Even like CAs who have worked in their own family businesses. So there are like, after even like being a CA, again we think that it's like co-finance, so there must be just one kind of job they're doing, but that's not the case. For example, even for you and for her, like it's in this room itself, for three of us,
all three of us have very different profiles.
Very different profiles and a very different experience that we have in our work, in our lives and everything. So the perspective also that we share, it's very different. For example, like talking to Poojan, I'm sure like whenever I discuss any problem with him, he has a different perspective on things. I have a different perspective on things, and Meghna has a different perspective on things altogether. So again, so that also like helps enrich that learning, because again we all have a same background, like we all have that same shared suffering trauma bonding that we all share, but at the same time we all have such different variety of experiences that also help the entire like the community here, of CAs itself. So that's also a very great thing.
And I think this one point I wanted to cover is, when should CAs do MBA, right? And I just had this framework when I was thinking about it. And I also advise other CAs who I speak to at times. So when you do your articleship, right, you do a lot of audit, taxation and finance. If you truly enjoy that job, CA is the degree. CA is the topmost degree for those fields. Stay in the field, keep your head down, go into practice or do your jobs. Amazing. Again, if you want to go into accounts and finance jobs in an industry, probably not a practice firm, or probably go into an industry, work for an MNC, but in the accounts and finance, if that's your passion, again, CA is the best degree you could have for this job. If you have eliminated both this, you don't want to do practice, you have figured out audit and taxation is not for you, you have eliminated accounts and finance, probably if you don't get the kick out of it, then you come into this zone of being a generalist, right? Where you look at all strategy, marketing, operations, along with finance and accounts. Probably that's where getting an MBA would really help you. So don't jump saying, okay, I've done my CA. The next thing to do is do an MBA. It's not that linear. Figure out what works for you and where you want to end up eventually, right? So for me, it was an elimination process. I figured out, okay, not this, not this, not this, and whatever remained was an MBA. So I think, how did you guys? So was it similar?
I think it depends on where you want to be, right? Like, say, 5 years down the line, or if you're not clear of that, say 2 years or down the line, what's your interest in? And if that lies even in like financial planning roles or in practice, definitely, then you're great at that, stick with that. But if you want to pivot to something, like I said, MBA opens up those doors for you.
Correct.
So, and secondly, also helps you build a network. And then MBA may be the right path. But I think when you work for like 2 years, you're also able to kind of figure out where you want to go next. And I mean, that may not be the case with everyone, because I know a CA who's working in product management without an MBA. So it depends on individuals. Some people just learn about all these different topics by themselves and are self-motivated and move on. But an MBA definitely helps you if you really want to pivot into something new.
Correct.
Or even within your field, open up some new doors at some of the other corporates. Yeah.
So again, I believe that even like if you are a CA and you are not so sure that you like where you are and you want to hit something different, it's not so much like you have to be sure about where you want to go and then MBA will be a right fit for you, because again, it lets you explore. So talking to so many people over here, also hearing their perspectives, hearing their experiences, because there might be that where you want to go, there is a person who has already worked there when you come to an MBA program. So you can actually understand from him what that work entails, what exactly a day looks like.
Foot in the door in almost any company.
Exactly.
In the country, right?
So that also helps, and also like for me personally, I knew that I didn't resonate so much with the traditional concepts of finance, and I wanted to look at things more holistically. I believe that my expertise is mostly in the critical thinking path. So that's why I thought that doing an MBA will help me get my foot inside the strategy roles and everything, and that's why I personally chose to do an MBA. So again, it depends, like, and also like I wanted to experiment. I wanted to see what the different things are there out there, and then decide for myself.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So what are the roles you'd be? So placement season is fast approaching. What are the roles you are thinking about targeting?
So I came to MBA with an open mind, honestly. Before I came to ISB, I thought, okay, maybe MBB, consulting and all of that. But after coming here and, meeting different people from so many different industries and talking to alums, right? I mean, one thing about ISB is also the alum network, because anybody who message on LinkedIn is usually so approachable.
Absolutely.
So now I'm actually going ahead with an open mind to either consulting, finance or strategy. And I know we just have 3 months to go, but we'll figure it out along the way.
Awesome.
Apparently, like, even though we come with different perspectives, we all leave with the same thing, because I am exactly like Meghna. I am also thinking on these lines only. So, like I said, like I am more inclined towards critical thinking and everything. So from that perspective, I believe that strategy roles and consulting will be a great fit for me. So that's what I am aiming towards right now: strategy, business consulting, or finance, FP&A roles. Basically, finance also inclined more towards the analytical and those side of things, rather than just hardcore finance.
Awesome. I think same here. I think kind of about the same.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. If hypothetical question, if you knew this was going to happen, ISB was going to happen to you, you'd be sitting here at this point in time, would you have still gone ahead and done your CA?
The last question has to be tricky, right? I think definitely 100% yes. Of course, a lot that you bring to ISB is who you were before, and I think so. The field I was working in, I owe that to CA, and also the process that CA puts you through and the kind of depth it gives you in finance. That's very unique to being a CA. Secondly, it's also I lost what I'm saying.
That's
Go ahead. You put that out.
So, like, I believe that whoever I am today, sitting right in front of you, it's because of this degree that I did. Because again, before, like, if you think yourself, like, if I think myself when I just did my class 12 examination, I just cleared that, I was about to go into college, I don't think the level of confidence that I bring right now would have been possible had I not had that backing me.
I think it's more of the character building,
exactly,
the resilience, the confidence.
So I can safely say, like, I don't need to write those words, but that writing that CA in my resume itself speaks a lot about how resilient, how hardworking, and how much of a dedicated person I am. So that thing, I believe that I will never like, it's one of the biggest accomplishments till date, right? That I have, like including ISB. It's like I'll place it on the highlights of my life. So I wouldn't have that taken away from me ever, because that was like one of the best things that has happened to me in my life. And the level of insights it has given me, like the way that I have performed in my previous organizations as well, I owe it to CA, because again the way I analyze things, the things that I learned, being able to apply that on the go. Yesterday only it happened. My high school, like my professor, he called me and he asked me a doubt, and even though I have not been practicing direct taxation, it's been years, and like I have even touched a book. Like I just go through news and everything, and I was still able to solve this doubt. So that's what CA has given me. Like even after 3 years after the CADS has been over, I'm able to solve a doubt in taxation which I have not been even doing post clearing my exam.
Probably you are a better CA than I am. I couldn't do it while I was doing
I think every CA can vouch for that during ITRC. So all those calls for tax return.
All those calls.
July at campus was very it was tricky.
Correct.
But yeah, same here. I would have, if I knew this would have happened, I would still have gone ahead and done my CA. I think it's more of I look at it as a character building exercise.
Absolutely.
Resilience, confidence,
Definitely.
Consistency, all of that. Those stays with you. But yeah, thanks for joining us today. Great fun talking to both of you.
It was great, yeah. It was great talking to you, and thanks for hosting us today. Yeah.
Okay, bye bye.
Thank you guys.
Bye bye. Thanks a lot for